Um, it's hard to know where to start because this is such a big movie, but I just want to say that like there are at least three star making performances in this thing. And the three that I would mention, I don't think you can really go wrong with anybody here. I think everybody gives at least a good performance, and that includes the eminently controversial Ansel Elgort. There too. Even though I will say he is probably the weakest of the whole crop. By virtue of how his character's written and a couple other things. I thought Rachel Zegler was downright phenomenal. And I guess she's a YouTube personality. I'm just old. I've just never heard of her.
Really?
I never heard of her. No, have you?
No. And but
She's a YouTuber. I didn't look too deep into
when people
it.
say when people say when people say YouTube personality, okay, I guess she is. Okay. Because the mainstream media might be like, oh yeah, they've got a YouTube channel, so therefore they are a YouTube. Like Will Smith is a YouTuber.
She's popular. Like I was probably the last to really discover her
she
of,
is.
like our age group.
Yeah, she does vlogs. It looks like okay, cool.
She plays Maria, I think, super affectionately. I think super well. You have Mike Faced as Riff, who's really good.
I freaking really love Riff in this movie. Holy shit,
he's so good. He is just he's just the right blend of braggadocious and cocky and arrogant and hard-headed. Smug. I loved it. He was really good. And then I'd also say too, Alvarez is very good too. I would also say though, I'd probably above Alvarez, I would probably say Ariana DeBois.
Yes.
As the other one, as Maria's sister.
Anita.
Anita. Yeah, I blanked on that.
Not sister, but
no. Bernardo's partner.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yes. She is very good. And like the emotional beat and it was what got Rita Moreno the Oscar in 61 too, is that climactic, it's after the climax or not after the climax. It's like there's like two climaxes in this movie.
I know what you
mean. But it's like, you know what I mean? It's when when Anita has to talk to Maria one-on-one after something devastating has happened. Like that got Moreno the Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
That absolutely got her the Oscar. And the boys nails that whole scene, the song, everything.
Well,
the acting here is uniformly great.
When I saw her in Ariana DeBose in Hamilton, because she was in the Hamilton cast as the Bullet, aptly named so because she shows a lot of the bullets showing in the show. But she does a fantastic job in terms of her choreography. I'd say when I saw her on the cast, it's like, okay, this movie is going to be something else because she can dance. She is actual Broadway. Can actually sing. With this whole cast, when I saw Ansel Elgort, I was like, oh no, okay. It's not a bad sign, but I was like, okay, are they just choosing people because they're like, did they just see him on Baby Driver and he's a good looking guy? Apparently he can sing because like that's him. It's like, yeah, he can hit the notes. But then I saw the rest of the cast. Like, oh, okay, cool. Ariana DeBose, David Alvarez. Okay, these are actual like Broadway trained people. Like they know what they're doing.
And he's kind of swallowed up by the wealth of talent and more experienced talent, at least in the musical Broadway realm, than he himself is. I liked him. And I know that, like I said, I don't want to get into it. I know he's a controversial. I mean, it's not like Elgort. Yeah, I know with the allegations.
That's some fresh stuff. I don't even want to touch. I don't
know.
No,
the thing is though, is like, so that's a hotbed. And I feel like people don't like, as bad as that is, people are reluctant or they're just very hard on him with this.
Let me say
I think he's good. I think he's good. I don't think he conveys the stakes of Tony real well, but I think he's good. I think I was not offended by his performance here.
Yeah, no, he does the job sufficiently and pretty well. Yeah, it's not bad at all. I think it's just a problem I have with, and by problem I mean just critiques, but like Ansel Elgort has a face that it's either you act big or you act subtle, and you can do both. But I can tell Elgort tries to do subtle, but I don't know if it actually translates to, I don't know if I'm getting that communique. It's like I don't know if I'm getting this 100%. It's very subtle. Then there is the scene where he gets a big piece. I'm gonna try and not spoil that, I guess. But he gets a big piece of news, and then he like freaks out. I was like, oh, okay, you can open your eyes bigger than like just woke up or whatever. Anyway, but yeah, but no, he did perfectly fine, and he hit those notes. I was impressed. Like these are some.
He's a damn good singer. These are not easy songs to sing. He's a damn good singer.
Something's coming. Is like there's a high note at the very end. It's like, oh, he hit that. Okay, good work. There you go.
Yeah, he does a really good job with the vocals. And then Rita Moreno, one of the best changes in this movie too is really the absence of Doc. The shop owner is replaced by Valentina, played by Rita Moreno, who again played Anita and won the Oscar. One of 10 Oscars this movie won back in 60, I think it was 62 then the following year. But she's in it and she replaces Doc. And I did not realize until this scene happens. And again, it's a famous scene in the original and it's done here. I don't think it's a spoiler necessarily. It's the near rape scene of Anita.
Right.
And I didn't realize it until it was coming, that it recontextualizes it because Valentina is the one to break it up, not Doc. And granted, it's a different culture. We're in the Me Too, post Me Too culture, but for the one of the attacks on movies nowadays, and I understand it, is like they're very hyper current and they come with like some sort of an agenda. That scene was handled exquisitely. And you don't realize the gender, switch and how it's going to play into it. Really, I didn't think about it until it happened.
Yeah, me neither.
And then I'm like, oh, this is going to be big. And she nails it. And it's a resounding triumph of a scene. I don't want to ruin her line because Doc's line in the original was good about how you boys are what make this world lousy. And the way he says it. I don't want to ruin Valentina's line here, what she says to the boys afterwards, but it is marvelously delivered by it. I mean, this is the kind of performance from her too that might get her the Oscar again for another role.
Imagine?
And granted, there's a lot that has to kind of fall into place for that to happen. I don't see it out of the realm of possibility. And that is a footnote in history. The same actress gets an Oscar nomination for the same movie in two completely different roles, 50 years apart? Like it would be insane, but it would also be arguably deserved.
Rita Moreno showing up in this movie, I was nervous about. There's a lot of things I was nervous about just because I love the original so much. But Rita Moreno, I was nervous about particularly because are they going to do like some cameo thing? And it's like, oh, hey, we paid our dues. No, I looked more into it after watching. It's like, Spielberg called her up and it's like, hey, we don't want to just do a cameo. We want to make this a real role. We're going to have you replace Doc or essentially fill the Doc role. And I was overjoyed. I words cannot fathom just how overjoyed I am to see Rita Moreno's performance in this and the way her character is written and the way her role is in this movie, because it's a loving tribute to the original. It honors the original. As you said, it recontextualizes so many scenes. Her role, her story in this one is that she married Doc, who is still a white guy in this story, in this universe. So she's actually like a bridge between the two cultures, the white culture and the Puerto Rican cultures. And that's not even a reconciliatory thing. It's like, at one point she's like, yeah, she's a gringa, she's a traitor. And it's like, God damn, that adds so much depth to this role where the Doc role is just supposed to be, it mirrors Romeo and Juliet like this whole story does, but it just mirrors that role kind of like I forget the name of the character in the original Shakespeare one, but it kind of just mirrors that role functionally. But just having Rita Moreno here, in that specific character and role it's such a breath of fresh air, probably the biggest breath of fresh air in this movie, and it's done so beautifully. So I really can't put it into words. I will say that she still got it. She never lost it. She still got it, man. Holy hell.
And she's an executive producer on this.
She's an executive producer, and like just another level of honoring her in this movie. She sings the song Somewhere which is another recontextualized thing, because in the original, and I believe in Broadway and every stage production, somewhere is sung between the two lovers, the Tony and Maria, decrying how they're not going to get their love now, but they'll get it somewhere. And here, Rita Moreno sings it, or Valentina sings it, kind of like lamenting society as a whole, lamenting her neighborhood, lamenting these kids, and lamenting her, while also remembering her late husband, the original Doc. And it's such a god damn. I'm so happy about Rita Moreno in this movie that I like. Oh, it overjoys me.
Yeah, it's really good. She's such a good performer in here. That's one of the many. I'm not going to say many because there's a few, but that's one of the few changes to this whole thing. And what I also loved, and I think that it would be a crime if they didn't do this, but I think it would also be a crime if they didn't do it so well, is that the movie, the ultimate difference, I think, with this movie and why it's better than the original is that, and I thought I was going to be the only critic to make that claim. Thank God I'm not. But the other thing is that it does what the 1961 movie couldn't do. And that is really humanize the Puerto Rican sharks.
Yes.
And on top of the fact that they actually cast Latino actors and actresses in this. Number one.
Natalie Wood is Russian, by the way.
Just number one. Number two, though, is that it gives light to the immigrant experience, and which is a big part of the original West Side Story. I can't speak for the Broadway show. I never saw it, but it's a big part of the movie. But there's always the imbalance in the original of the Sharks and the Jets, and you can't hold it too much against the movie because of the time. But it's all, I mean, on top of the fact that at times in the original, I found it difficult to tell the Sharks and Jets apart for makeup reasons, because the Jets are never like ethnically concretized either, as like they're Polish or they're Russians or whatever. They're never like ethnic, as they're not as ethnically concretized as the Puerto Ricans. Where in this one, though, it gives a lot of weight and life and value to the immigrant experience, especially visually, which I'll touch on in a moment.
I'll do you one better. I think Spielberg manages to contextualize or better, like, do justice to both gangs. Even obviously the Puerto Ricans, as you said, just even giving them an extra song, which is them doing like a group song in the very beginning, just like a minute of them singing, just in the face of the cops. I was like, damn, that's fucking that's badass. That was
good. That whole opening was really strong.
Yeah, 100%. But even the Jets as well, the white kids, where it's like, oh, okay, like they kind of imply it subtly in the background in the original, but here it's like, no, we're gonna let you know, like, yeah, in the 50s, New York, we were just like throwing poor people under the bus, and like just gentrification's a hot new word now, seemingly, but no, we were doing that shit in the 50s. Like, yeah, Lincoln Center, the Lincoln Center for Performing Arts, yeah, that was all like, that's where working class people lived, and like we just drove them away not for public housing, but just for this fancy whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay, that actually makes sense as to why these two gangs are actually fighting over what little territory, shrinking territory that they have. I think they even throw in an extra line there from the cops, where it's like, or no, I don't know, maybe one of the Jets say it, where it's like, yeah, you Puerto Ricans, you got it tough, but at least you got family. You're tight knit. You got a tight knit community. That community's under attack, but at least you got it. Here, it's like we're all like orphans, and like our parents are drunks and druggies and stuff, or criminals. Uncle's doing 15 years on Rikers or some shit like that, and it's like, goddamn, yeah, you're right. they do benefit from being white, but they're still like poor and abused by the system, which is the whole point of the Officer Krupke song. But they accentuate it there too. Even just like the first shot of the movie is them like, hey, yeah, this is like all gonna be torn down, and like just a massive, I think, a drone shot of That might be Spielberg's first drone shot. I don't know, but of like, hey, here's the massive slums that this whole thing takes place in, and why it's a slum in the first place. Just that alone is like just a little tidbit of extra backstory that isn't too heavy-handed. I think even Tony gets some extra backstory too, but it worked. Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner, the screenwriter here, manages to really bake it in very subtly, as opposed to like, hey, we're gonna go back to Puerto Rico and see them get on the boat. It's like, no, we don't need to do that. Let's just make it subtle.
It's a here and now thing. And I mean, this movie was really made by a crop of cinematic of people who are fluent geniuses in the language of cinema. I mean, on top of Spielberg, Kushner devises an excellent screenplay, a balanced screenplay, a very humanizing screenplay. You have Josh, what's his name? I want to get his name right too. Justin Peck, excuse me. I always want to say Josh Peck. Justin Peck as the as the choreographer here, who does exceptional work. And then you have Janusz Kaminski, Spielberg's right-hand cinematographer, did Schindler's List and litany of other Spielberg movies. Kaminski even heightens it, where Kushner nails the writing of humanizing both the sharks and the jets. I agree with your point too. What Kushner's writing is balanced beautifully by Kaminski's cinematography insofar of the visual language of the movie. And I'll give a good example too, is that you have the setting is this crumbling infrastructure that's pervasive. You have cranes and construction. The city's in disarray. It's being torn down. It's being rebuilt. The groups are being nudged out. The cops are pricks, like everything. And you have these young people whose lives are broken, not irreparably, but they're very broken. They are starting, like you talk about, like, certain political groups love to say that we all start at the same starting point. These guys don't even have tickets to the arena. No. Okay. They don't even have tickets to the damn arena. They're not even in the parking lot. But like the visuals of this, like setting them against the backdrop, because there's some scenes where these like crumbling buildings or these cranes that are either tearing down or building are in the background, towering over the characters. The symbology of this movie too, in a visual sense, is gorgeous, and it's handled extremely well. And it comes as really no surprise. It really shouldn't, because Kaminski's one of the best cinematographers working today. Spielberg's one of the best directors working today, but they knock it out of the park again. That's the thing. I never get tired of seeing like a home run. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can go to a million baseball games. You never get tired of seeing a home run. Like, it's the same thing here, where they kill it and they give it another layer of like that was present in the 61 version. But I think the visual poetry here is so damn strong throughout.
I love something that Spielberg, or at least his collaborators too, have been nailing in the past, like his past movies, even like his American History trilogy, starting with Lincoln, right? I call that Lincoln. I forget the middle one in The Post. Crap. But anyway, he has a specific look that he employs in all his movies that is, it's like glossy almost, but not to the point of like, hey, why did you make this glossy? It's more like it's like a memory. Like, you're looking back on this time. It's authentic, but it also has this extra zhuzh to it that is really, really cool. It's like almost like honoring it to a degree. And the way that this movie, this West Side Story in particular, plays with lights, a lot of not like annoying lens flare from what's his name, the guy who did the new Star Wars and stuff like
J.J.
that.
Abrams.
Yeah, it's not like annoying lens flare like that, but it's
not to interrupt you, but you were either thinking of Bridge of Spies,
or I was thinking of Bridge of Spies.
I was gonna say, I'm like, he's not thinking of Ready Player One. It's got to be Bridge of Spies.
Yeah, the American History.
I was hoping you were going to even throw me a curveball. I was hoping you were going to tell me you were thinking of the BFG.
BFG, no, I'm okay. Yeah, Lincoln, Ready Player One, and The Post. That perfect trilogy of American history. No, but
BFG gang, baby.
Yeah, dude, there's a certain glossiness here. And usually when you say glossy, it's usually a negative. But no, here it puts it into like a semi-dream state. And usually when you think dreamy, you usually think like very soft edges very kind of like a very faded or fuzzy in a way, in a very warm kind of way. No, this kind of dreamlike is very like bright, very stark edges and very colorful, and it's so fun to look at. Honestly, like if you had told me that Lin-Manuel Miranda had a say in this somehow, or that his production company had a say in this somehow, I'd believe you. Not just for the themes of Puerto Ricans in New York dancing in the streets, but just in the look alone, it's so beautiful. Even like in certain like the battle scenes in Lincoln, have that same kind of quality to it that is real. It's surreal, but still very grounded. And it's like looking at a candy store. I don't know how to say it. Regardless, I just want to shout out to the beautiful look of this movie. That's probably owed to the cinematographer, but also the colorists as well here. It's great.
Yeah, it's a beautiful movie. Before we give our final star ratings too, because we do want to touch on the box office performance of this movie, and we're really going to switch gears and tone for this because I'm yet again pissed at America. But I want to ask you. I'll give mine too. You could probably maybe even guess mine. I think I mentioned it in my review, which you can read at stevepulaski.com. What's your favorite number in the original, and what's your favorite number here?
I hate you.
You don't have to say the original, but like here at least, since we're talking about the new one, like okay, what was the number? What was your favorite? There's a lot of them here.
Yeah, I can answer that. The original Mambo is one of the greatest musical from '61. The original Mambo is one of the greatest dance sequences in cinema cinema history, hands down. One of the greatest. I would argue the greatest, but easily top 10. I think I don't if there's a group of Broadway and cinema historians, they would say consistently Mambo in every sense. In the new one, I might that's really hard to say. I'm actually going to say Cool, just because that's probably the biggest departure here, is that Cool is completely recontextualized. It's put at a different place. It's done by different characters, and it has different meaning behind it that I really appreciate. It's a much more intimate dance number too, because it's very character driven. In the original, Cool is done after the characters die. Just like, hey, let's just calm down because the cops are going to be on us, and then the Jets just do Cool. In this new one, I guess I don't want to spoil it, but in this new one, it's very character driven, and it's like, hey, this is accentuating that this character cares about this one, this character is desperate, etc., and it gives it a whole new meaning. But behind that, I could easily say Somewhere by Valentina here, because it's just brand new, and it's so refreshing.
Somewhere by Valentina comes very close for me. I think so. I mean, if you want to say best, I probably would say Somewhere by Valentina. If you want to say best, like in terms of best, the time it comes in the movie, the message of the song, Moreno's performance, like you want to go that way, I will. The one that entertained me the most, and the one I will certainly replay, is going to be G Officer Krupke. Because I love so that. Good. I love that song. And I love what they did to it. I love it in the original too. The original is good. The original, it takes place on the street. Mm-hmm. When they do the song, the Jets perform that song. And I kept wondering throughout the first hour or so, I'm like, I wonder how they're going to do the Krupke, how they're going to do Officer Krupke in this one. And they're in like the booking room of the police station. And it takes on a whole new context too, because they are in the very institution that is helping suppress them.
It's really,
and that thunderous finale when the typical Krupp you, when the line you're expecting, Krupp you, the way that hits, because they're doing it mainly in abstract in the original, where in here they are right in the heat, they're belly in the actual institution. They're in the belly of the beast, so to speak. I clapped. I was in a theater of it was about 20 people in the theater. It was a good crowd on a Saturday afternoon. I clapped after it. I was struck by that. That was one of those instances where I was like, I was happy. I saw it in the Heights in the theaters when it came out, and I was happy because I could go back home on HBO Max. Number one, make my mother watch it, and number two, go back and play certain scenes. I was so pissed when I got out thinking, I was like, I want to see that G Officer Krupke one more time. Like, it was marvelous. Somewhere too, I would love to see again.
Officer Krupke. I could do a breakdown of every single song in this musical, but Officer Krupke is a really important one because it's the most society driven one. Actually, I take that back. That might be America. But for the Jets, for the Sharks, it's America. For the Jets, it's Officer Krupke, and
that's why I like it a lot.
Exactly,
because it's sociological.
100%. And
so is America
with Officer, like fun fact. I'll throw in this tidbit while we remember Stephen Sondheim. What a beautiful industry-wide like celebration of Stephen Sondheim, inadvertently celebrating Stephen Sondheim. Like he could not have picked a better year to like kick the bucket and like, hey, you're gonna be in a scene in Tick Tick Boom, and we're gonna celebrate your first work. Like Jesus Christ.
And let's not pretend like his fingerprints aren't on In the Heights.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like even that too.
Yeah.
You know, no, I'm serious. This is a banner year for Sondheim, to say the very least, because he's so memorialized very thoughtfully in Tick Tick Boom. You can feel his influence.
He's a character. He's straight up a character.
Yeah, you could feel it. And I mean, on top of that, his influence marinating throughout the whole movie. And then you have this, obviously. No, this is a banner year. This is a banner year for Sondheim loyalists.
Fun fact, Officer Krupke, when Sondheim wrote that, he did want to put in the FU at the end of that song.
Yeah.
But he wanted to break that barrier in Broadway, but he decided against it. I think there was some pressure either from Bernstein or someone else, like, all right, fine, I'll relent. I got to find a different way to end this. And he came up with Officer Krupke, Krupp you. And he was like, you know what? He later went on the record saying, this is my favorite. This is probably the favorite lyric I've ever written, because it was born out of necessity. And it's like, gee, Officer Krupke, Krupp you. That's a stroke of genius. And I agree. Like that's awesome. That's a great story.
And you think, and it's so corny. Like if you're reading it or you just say it to somebody who's unfamiliar with West Side Story, it's going to come off as tacky. But what precedes it is 5 minutes of nothing but rage that attacks every cranny of society.
You don't
and
need
makes
the
an
FU.
Argument for everything.
You don't
really need it.
Yeah.
You don't need it. And at the end, it's just a mic drop. And then just the way, I don't want to ruin how it ends in the booking room in the new one, how the song sets up. But it's so good. And there's better props because they're in the police station too. Mm-hmm. There's better props that they can utilize as well, as opposed to being on the street and on the stoop. Like just a masterful scene. Just when I thought handedly In the Heights, the opening, the first 8 minutes of In the Heights was going to be my favorite musical number of the year. And damn, Officer Krupke is a close second for my favorite of the year. And that just goes to show you, it has been a remarkable year for musicals if this country would pay attention.
100%. We're going to go into ratings, right?
You go first.
Yeah, 4 out of 4. Easy for me. This is in so many aspects, it honors the original. It does justice to the original. It expands on the original in so many subtle, not heavy-handed ways. For not just for the Puerto Ricans as a whole, but for specific characters like Anybody's. It's like, hey, you threw in like it was like very easily added to the character of Anybody's, which is in the original a tomboy. In this new one, it's like, oh no, this person is probably trans. Like 100%. Like that's probably what it would be in real life. Like, that just even,
and they couldn't really say that in the original either.
Well, they didn't. They probably didn't even know what that was right at the time. Probably, I don't know. But the Jets as well. They get expansions. Tony gets a backstory. Like, he like did time, and he like there were other gangs that they were beating up on too. And it's this. What a beautiful celebration of the original, of Sondheim, of Rita Moreno, of Spielberg's work as a whole. My God, I hope he does another musical, because I want to see what he does with a not as a musical where the groundwork may not be so laid out. I want to give Dear Evan Hansen to Steven Spielberg. I want to see what he does with it. No, I'm kidding.
No, we probably got, if we're lucky, 20 more years with Spielberg, maybe 12 more with him directing feature projects like this. No, I would love to see another musical from him. I really would. Like you said, one with significantly less fanfare. Because right now, you've conquered the mountain in terms of like taking the arguable granddaddy of the genre, and remaking it. Like, this is the rare, in my opinion, I don't put these two words together for obvious reasons. This is the rare elite remake where it does everything you could possibly want in terms, like you just said. I'm a piggyback off of you, honoring the original, but not being beholden to the tradition of the original too. And when it does make changes, it makes logical changes. It doesn't make changes to appease certain groups. It makes changes for the betterment of the characters and the betterment of the production and the piece itself. That's very respectful.
Not appease,
very
for the betterment.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does. I give it 3.5 out of 4 stars. I loved it. I'm gonna watch it again.